Welcome back to the Gooner Fanzine Arsenal Women podcast. If you listened last week, we talked about how Arsenal needed a bit of a bounce back from their 0-0 draw against Manchester United. We wanted plenty of goals and an Arsenal win. That wasn't the case. Arsenal won, Aston Villa won, Frida Maanum scoring in the 10th minute, Lucy Parker to equalise in the 94th. Probably not a great game for an Arsenal fan or a neutral. Izzy, you chose this one as the chance to take your mates, come along, see what Arsenal women can do. And I can imagine this probably wasn't the ideal game to do that with.
Not particularly, and especially for a lot of people that have never been to a football match, it wasn't great. Although someone, when Aston Villa scored, someone said, "Oh, that's great. It means we get extra time and penalties." And I went, "No, no, no, no. It's league. We're not getting extra time." And I said, "Oh, you've jinxed it now." So yeah, I mean, everyone had a nice time because it is just a nice day out. But yes, it was a real shame about the result for me anyway. But maybe I was the only person in my group actually watching the game. So yeah. Not a
What
great display.
what was the atmosphere like, sort of generally? I guess because I've not been able to. Well, I was there at the opening day, but I've not covered a game there yet. What did it feel like? I guess what was it, 24,000, and sort of what how audible was the frustration? I guess one at the sort of the style of play, but then also the equaliser.
Yeah, I mean, 24,000 in there it still looks like it's quite empty. So I thought it was less than that. And then they announced 24,000. I thought that's actually a fantastic number, considering that wasn't one of the games included in the six-game package season ticket. So that's quite an organic 24,000 because it's only including maybe half of that season ticket. So that was a good thing that came out of that weekend because it wasn't a heavily marketed match. And they kind of had everyone at one end, so it was nice and loud, especially when Arsenal was shooting towards kind of where the supporters club is, block 10, block 11. So that was good to see that many people turning up. But yeah, I mean, I think it was one of those games where you go in assuming it's going to be a bit more of a positive result. I think as a group of fans and potentially scoring that early goal, it felt like maybe okay, this is going to happen and Arsenal are going to keep creating stuff. But just, from the 10th minute scoring that's quite an early goal to score and then not being able to really create any big major opportunities after that is just, it was a bit disappointing. And I think people were quite in and out of their seats. And yeah, just it was very flat, especially when that equaliser was scored. And of course it is going to be, but the sort of very small slither of Villa fans in the corner were all on their feet. But yeah, not quite the same in Block 10.
Yeah, I mean, credit to Villa, they defended well. I thought Anna Patton, former Arsenal youngster, I thought she was really good. She sort of got her foot on the end of everything, but it felt like a late Eidevall, early Slager's performance. And we've got to talk about sort of the lack of squad rotation because it's been the same midfield in all four league games. No, we'll come on to City later, but to change anything when you go away to Manchester City, is almost more of a big call. If Arsenal were to have given Kyra Cooney Cross a go, you'd have wanted it to be against Villa, I guess, rather than City. But now, if they take that risk, it's going to look bigger, I guess, when you're playing against Manchester City. But it's been the same midfielders, but the wingers seem to be chopping and changing. And I was just watching Rachel Corsie on Sky Sports dissect the game and saying, for how good Caitlin Ford was last season, I thought she was one of the better players against United as well. There's a lot of talk about, not swapping the midfielders, not swapping all that else, but are the wingers maybe being changed over a bit too much and we're losing that relationship sort of between the wingers and the fullbacks?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it was a bit disjointed on the wings, and that was where we really needed that strength against Aston Villa because we were able to get a bit of attacking pace, a bit of momentum on the wings, especially down that right hand side from Emily Fox, just playing out from the back and making those runs up the side. But I think that yeah, potentially Chloe Kelly came on as too late of a sub. You've got I know Rennie Segers is trying to put her attacking options on, but as you said, you're not giving those wingers a chance to settle into the game together in their kind of combinations. Beth Mead starting that game. I think a lot of people will have questioned that decision, whether maybe Kelly should have started over her, but I thought Beth Mead actually didn't have a bad game. To be fair, she created a couple of almost chances, but yeah, I think that they need a bit of consistency potentially because if you don't know where you are and you don't know, who's going to be starting and it's going to be changing every week, you can't really get into that rhythm. And Arsenal are good when they have a bit of a rhythm, a bit of consistency. So yeah, it was a little bit confusing, those choices on the wings. But you've got to assume that there's been conversations had and there's a reason behind it. But yeah, I don't know what we'll expect to see against Man City.
Does anyone want to shoot from outside the box? I mean, I can't quite get my head around it because, like, the last couple of games they're playing almost the strikers are playing with a little bit of fear, and that's what concerns me a bit. Is that's I think is watching Alessia Russo towards the end of Jonas Eidevall's reign, she was sort of getting dropped to the bench. Stina Blackstenius wasn't scoring goals, and they both look these sort of nervy players. Now Russo then went on that incredible run under Renee Slagers, and not to criticise her because I thought she was one of Arsenal's better players as she often is. She's drifting wide quite a lot, which I didn't think massively helped, but she was trying to do her bit and inject a bit of pace into the game, sort of spinning away onto the right wing in particular. But it just seems there's a lack of confidence in and around the penalty area. And when Kelly Smith is on your coaching staff, and you've got the players you have, you spent £1 million on Olivia Smith, you've got options and depth up front. Why is this sort of seeming lack of confidence coming, especially after scoring so many goals on the opening two games? Because it just seems like no one wants to take risks in this Arsenal side at the moment.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, and that was definitely a call that was coming from the crowd. Was just shoot, 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 basically, and then even I don't know fullback was Emily Fox had quite a lot of space on the edge of the box, where it looked like it from where I was sitting, and it's just like a lot of kind of dilly dallying and waiting for the next pass. But actually, you've just got to give it a go. At that point, they were 1-0 up at that point, but trying to bury the game and finish it by getting a second one, in that portion of time would have just been the right decision. I know they were trying to score, but it just didn't feel like there was a sense of urgency or attacking momentum. It just, yeah, it felt like everyone was sort of hoping someone else was going to shoot rather than just going for it themselves. And I think Olivia Smith could have maybe had a couple of goes, and Kim Little as well. I thought Kim Little did have a really good game, but she's always great when she tries and shoots from range. She normally kind of gets it on target at least, and I think that yeah, it's something that they were really missing, and I don't really quite know why, because it's not like it's been a massive run of bad results, and you're coming off the back of quite a positive summer for a lot of those players, and yeah, I mean Russo's hold up play, as you said, she had a good game, was great, and but yeah, just a bit nervous to shoot, and I don't know why.
Yeah, Arsenal had three shots outside of the box. Villa had six. I can't remember any of those Arsenal ones. And I think the concern for me is I know Emily Fox is a right back, but if you're a player who's got into that position in the box where she's between two defenders and you're thinking anyone, I don't care if you're a centre back, your first thought has to be going for goal. And instead, Fox makes the extra pass. I think it was to Mead who sort of came in on the left side of the penalty area. But that concerns me because I know Emily Fox isn't used to being in that position. But, she's got to have in her mind, take the risk and score the goal instead of playing the extra pass. But at the moment, playing the extra pass and being unselfish seems sort of quite stuck in the minds of these Arsenal forwards. And I think what's annoying for me is that Olivia Swift scores the goal she does on the opening day, and we hope this is a bit of a sign of things to come of Arsenal sort of loosening things up, having a go a little bit more outside of the box. They've got these creative players, Mariona Leon away, Kim Little, we know she can score goals, but she just never seems to take it on. Frida Marnham can score from range as well. Beth Mead's capable of the spectacular, but they just don't seem to try it at the moment, and that's what worries me a little bit because I just don't think Sabrina D'Angelo was really tested enough, sort of from memory, having not watched the game back. And then there's the midfield conundrum, as you say. I think Kim Little was really good, but Mariona's not looked the same player at the start of this season, and what's the answer there? Do you push her back into a more forward role, or is it a case of trying a Cooney Cross and Little partnership? Because, like I said last week, I don't think they want to risk a Cooney Cross Mariana sort of midfield.
Yeah, the thing is, I think that you can't really drop Mariano Caldente to the bench or anything if you're going to try and keep and try if you're going to start trying out new combinations of players, and then you've got quite a few people performing well in that more maybe 10 position, which she might actually suit or might enjoy playing. I thought Vic Palova came on and did quite a good job on Saturday, and then you've got Frida Marnham who's managed to score a few goals this season already. So it just depends what you're looking for against the opponent. But I think Rani Segers has got to maybe not be afraid to give it a go and try out these new combinations. I mean, Kyra Cooney Cross is literally just sitting on that bench, and I will always sing her praises, but I just thought last season, whenever she was playing, she has got some really, really good qualities that maybe other players on the team don't have that she can bring. And I know she's young and hasn't had as much experience, but she's really experienced internationally, for example, for Australia. She's always starting for her country. And I just think she needs to be given the opportunity to come on. And Saturday's game was an example of that kind of moment that she should have been given, because it's not working for Arsenal. So you've got to completely change it up. And someone like Cairo Cooney-Cross would have been a good option there for Renée Slegers. So it is a real conundrum. And you know, obviously before the season, Renée Slegers saying, "Oh, it's a nice issue to have that many midfielders," but you don't want to end up with a kind of Rosa Kafaji last season situation where she's just not getting any minutes, having been brought in for that position, and then ends up going off on loan. And yeah, it's really tricky.
Yeah, it feels a bit like, interim Rennie Slagers when it was just try and play your best team every week. And, I think come the end of last season, she clearly knew what her best team was when you look at the Champions League final, etc. And I think almost the thinking was get through this first block of games, and then, once the Champions League starts and you get these sort of more Saturday, Wednesday, Sunday, Wednesdays, whatever, then you're forced to rotate a little more. But it seems like they just wanted points on the board. They'd have looked at this start and gone, well, probably aside from City and United, 3 games they should definitely be winning. And to draw with United, sort of we were saying, is okay, but to then go and draw with Villa, I think it suggests there's a little bit more of a problem, and that's the concerning thing for Arsenal because we've spoken all summer about the challenge for Renée this season is rotating more and how she uses this squad. And at the moment, I think with where Arsenal are in the league and the players who are being sort of left out, I also think the timing of the subs, Chloe Kelly on with 3 minutes to go, you know, I think that's concerning as well. I think rotation overall is one of the biggest question marks at the minute.
Yeah, definitely. And there's all these players, you know, they're ready to go. It's not like there's no injuries. It's not like you're managing a lot of people's minutes coming back. So it is just interesting why Chloe Kelly didn't come on a bit earlier. I mean, to be fair, my friends were making good points around me, not knowing much about football or Arsenal women, but they do know Chloe Kelly, of course. And they're going, why is she not brought on Chloe Kelly? Why has she not come on earlier? And I was kind of going, I'm not actually really sure at this point in the game when you get to sort of the sort of 80s minutes, and you're just going, that's what we need, a little bit more pace there, or a bit more fearlessness is what she normally brings to the pitch. But actually she didn't quite bring that, but maybe she didn't have enough time to settle into the game. Well, she certainly didn't. But yeah, I think squad rotation is going to be really important, and I will be interested to see when the Champions League matches do start next week, and then further down the line when we start going into FA Cup, Subway Cup rounds as well, whether that squad rotation is something that Renée Segers actually is able to handle well, and is able to give everyone a fair amount of minutes and balance loading and everything. So yeah, I think that that'll be the real test when there's those midweek fixtures to really see where her head's at with that. And I think a lot of players will then understand their role within the squad. But yeah, if not, then I think it's a bit concerning.
Team selection at City away is massive. I think I'm really, really interested because this has historically been the Stina Blackstenius game last season. She missed so many chances and then obviously was the hero at the end of the game when Arsenal won. In a really, really dramatic game at City, as it often is. But, do they go on history again, drop Russo into the 10 after that didn't really work at United away? What are the big calls going into this game?
I think Russo in the 10, we just know that that doesn't work. It's a conversation that we've had on here time and time again, but also that I think other people are having, because, great hold up play, but she just isn't really suited to that position. I don't think she drifts around enough as much as, say, Frida Maanum does. And I think that she is and should be playing in that 9. I don't know with her kind of recent fear to shoot, but hopefully that'll, that won't be a permanent fixture. I think you maybe need to look at that 10 position though, whether you can play Stina Blackstenius and Russo together and Blackstenius in more of that role, or whether you actually, as I said earlier, push Mariona up and put her into that 10, and maybe Vic Palova back down into a bit of a deeper midfield role, which we have seen her play before. But as you said, it's a really, really big call for Renée Segers to make. I think it's going to be a big weekend for that centre-back position, because if Katie Reid starts again, she looked a little bit upset after the game on Saturday, and whether she's ready to take on Bunny Shaw as her next kind of striker is a different conversation. You've got Lotte Wibben-Moy sitting on the bench that could be a potential option there, but has she had enough minutes? It's just there's question marks all over the pitch, I think, and I don't think this is a conversation that we wanted to be having at this stage in the season. I think we thought there'd be a few more points on the board, it'd be a bit more of a confident looking team, but it's not quite there.
Yeah, Man City, Lyon, Brighton, Benfica. So I mean, those that Man City Lyon pair. I mean, you can't play the same side against those two. You simply can't. So Arsenal really have to weigh up, I guess, those two fixtures because with that Saturday kickoff now, it's an even shorter turnaround. Saturday the 4th, Tuesday the 7th. Arsenal were originally due to be playing City on this Friday night, so they've not massively been helped out by the league, as is often the case for these European games. The Woman Moy point's a good one because she's got really, really good history against Bunny Shaw, and I was watching her sort of just have fun against London City and thinking, look, Katie Reed's done it so far. The Melvin Mallard test, I thought she did really well, but like that, you have to be unbelievable really to keep Bunny Shaw quiet. So that's a massive test, but you can't drop her. For me, I thought she was outstanding really for most of it against Aston Villa again. Probably, emotional in the sense that Arsenal really should have won it. And it is that pressure of playing at the Emirates. She's still a young player, probably playing a lot more than she'd have expected sort of come the end of last season. And overall, she's done a good job. But if they were to drop her for Wibben Moy, then there is the history there. There's the Black Stenius history there. I feel for Marnham because I can easily see us being a Cooney Cross Little or a Palova Little midfield with then Mariona in front of them. But again, Marnham was taken off in the second half, having not done quite a lot wrong. It was the same away to West Ham. She was taken off at half time, and a lot of the time it's to accommodate Black Stenius, but I think Arsenal need to be brave. If they really want to back Blackstenius, you want one of your best number 10s in. And Alessia Russo, as good as she is, isn't one of Arsenal's best number 10s. We've said this so many times. And I feel like often Frida Maanum is almost not the scapegoat, but she's sort of the easy player to drag off to then sort of shuffle things around. But I think she's had a good start to this season. I think it's been a little bit harsh on her so far.
Yeah, I mean, of course she's had a good start to the season. She's scored in I think three out of four matches now. She is a really, really good option. As that West Ham preseason game as well, scoring two there. I think she's yeah, a fantastic player to have on that team, and bringing her off at half time just for me isn't the solution. You're either giving her the game to play her football and bring what she has to offer, or you're choosing another number 10 and backing them. I think that swapping at half time if there's not an injury or another reason, then is a little bit kind of neither here nor there, and you're not giving anyone the chance to really, really get into the rhythm, as I said earlier. So yeah, I do wonder whether Mariona behind Stina Blackstenius would be quite a nice combination of the 10 and 9 positions there. But I think the problem is Renée Segers is not going to drop Alessia Russo to the bench, and she'd rather play her in a position that she's not very good at, and she's not, it's not her best than sit her on the bench. But I think that maybe, as you said, a bit of bravery would be key here, and you've got Viv Miedema as well to contend with at City, just thinking about their threats. And she really does like to come and score against Arsenal. It's a team she obviously knows extremely well. And yeah, I mean, it's going to be a conundrum for Renée Slegers.
Yeah, it's a massive game. It really is. City winning 4-1 against London City. Grace Clinton, I thought, looked really good as well.
I forgot that they've got her as well.
Yeah, they're getting there, Man City. Casper had a really good game. Blinkilda Brown. There's a little bit more in the way of squad depth as well in terms of some of the players they brought in the summer. Laura Veenreuter still can't really catch a break as well. She's still barely playing. But that was a really interesting game. Manchester versus London, as I'm sure everyone called it. But yeah, there's some conundrums, and like I think Arsenal just have a situation where Alessia Russo is rightly undroppable. But I think they need to think actually. A striker for me is one of those positions where you have your best striker and they play every game apart from the cup games where you rotate, and that's what almost frustrates me. It's a bit like, when Arsenal for a while had the D'Angelo or Zinsberger. There are certain positions for me where you need your best player to be your best player, and you tell them they're your best player, and the backup knows they're the backup, and that's just how it works. And you keep with that, and it's the continuity even in game as well. So, yeah, lots of interesting bits there, and then. I feel like it was a weekend that was made worse on Sunday because West Ham were awful against Chelsea. And there was that red card. Chelsea scored some great goals, and then you're just thinking, actually, I know Chelsea, by all reports, weren't great against Leicester last weekend, but and that seemed to get all of their fans talking. But like, I don't think there's anyone looking at Chelsea and thinking, yeah, they're going to drop some points soon because they still just look like they're motoring on as always, even if maybe they're not playing quite the style of football their fans are hoping for.
Yeah, I mean, you can say they weren't brilliant against Leicester, but they still got 3 points against Leicester, and that's really all that matters when it comes to winning the league is the points. So, unless it comes down to goal difference, but they're not having any issues there either, really. So, yeah, I think that's always been the difference with Chelsea is they've always been able to get themselves out of a tricky situation. Maybe it's not their day, things aren't going quite to plan, but they just managed to get it over the line, 3 points, whether it's a last minute goal or just winning 1-0. It's just the way that they seem to be able to do things. And I don't know if they've got more of a kind of cutting edge and fearlessness in front of goal, and they're just able to be a bit more clinical in those really, really tough moments. And yeah, I mean, it's a conversation we've been having for a few seasons now, back to the Jonas Eidevall times when it would be Emma Hayes against Jonas Eidevall, and it would just be kind of obvious which way it was going to go. And I think, yeah, I just think it's something Arsenal really need to look at. And City away this weekend is going to be a really, really tough test, and it's one that they basically need to win it. I mean, 2 draws in a row, you've got to hit the ground running again. Yeah, I don't really know what
Yeah,
what
Arsenal
she does.
fourth in the table, Chelsea top with 12 points. United, City, Tottenham, all in front of them, Brighton a point behind, and then there's that sort of 4 point drop off, Everton, Leicester, London City, and Villa. I mean, Villa are obviously played a game less but are winless this season, and I don't know. Also, there's also a bit in the back of my mind of that the fact that Villa thrashed Arsenal after the Lyon game. Do you think that played any part in actually a bit of cautiousness in this game, even though Villa are where they are and Arsenal should really be winning this game? Do you think actually, because of how good they were on that night and how poor Arsenal were defensively, do you think that played into it at all, or I could be completely wrong?
You just never know what the factors are behind the scenes. Potentially that played into Renee Slegger's team selection and wanting to play it a little bit safe and leave those reliable players on and those combinations that we're quite used to seeing. But then some odd substitutions against them. So I don't really know. I mean, I guess it's quite scarring to lose 5-2 to a side that you really, really should be beating at the end of the season. And I know at that point we weren't really in contention for the league, but it was all, confidence boost for that Champions League final, which was then coming up, and it had everyone in doubt after that. So yeah, I don't know whether there's an element of that in their brains, but it's interesting. It was at the Emirates. I mean, that's been a bit of a fortress for Renee Seger since she's come in, and that was really one of the poorer results that I've seen, them Arsenal achieve there. So that was an interesting thing as well. It wasn't a bad crowd. So yeah, I mean, I'm sure there were many, many factors, and we've got to move on. That was the result, 1-1.
Yeah, thank you to the men's team yesterday. Thank you to
Yeah.
Gabrielle and Mikel Marino for just about saving our weekend. Just finally, some quotes from Ian Wright, who I thought was a little harsh. I agreed with most of it. He said, very disappointing from an Arsenal point of view. I thought they were very poor, too negative. They didn't get enough shots off. They got everything they deserved. I'm disappointed to see how negative we are in games like this at home. Now, in that last line, I think he's maybe more generalising because we all know how good Arsenal be. It was the first time they've scored less than 4 goals at home under Rene Slagers, which is remarkable. And it's a ridiculous stat as how good they've been in the league, sort of under Rene at the Emirates in particular. But I think a lot of that quite fair from Ian Wright, almost saying we've learned a lot more about Arsenal against United and then Villa, I guess, not bouncing back than we have maybe in those opening 2 games.
Yeah, I mean, he's never shy to say his opinion, especially when it comes to Arsenal in general. But Arsenal women, I think sometimes in women's football, you have maybe some pundits and some people speaking on the game that are maybe a bit scared to offend people or a bit scared to really say it how it is. But Ian Wright, I always feel like his analysis when he's working one of the games, it is very, he's very honest, and he has been again, and it's good to see because he's going to say it how it is, and actually his opinion is very respected in that community. And I do agree with most of what he said, in that it was disappointing, and it's not a result that Arsenal would have wanted or would have expected going into it. And it's not something that fans or, him, Ian Wright is a big Arsenal advocate, want to demand from their team. And yeah, it's yeah, not a brilliant display, but we'll see this weekend if there's a bounce back against City. It's just classic Arsenal. It'll be a 1-1 against Villa and then go and beat City away sort of 3-0 or something. It's just what tends to happen. But yeah, we'll see what happens on Saturday.
Yeah, I'll be there for Laguna early kickoff. I think there's like two trains you can get from Manchester that from London that'll give you any chance of getting to Manchester in time. But it means you get home a little bit earlier, at least 12 o'clock kickoff at the Joy Stadium, where Arsenal have won on their last couple games. Their Stina Blackstenius with those two goals to help win Chelsea the league 2 seasons ago, and then last year Woodman Moy scored there actually because Mariona
Mhm.
scored inside the first minute. I think Woodman Moy scored maybe 6, 7 minutes later. And of course, Blackstenius popped out of a late goal after barely hitting the barn door. So yeah, it's always a good game, and yeah, you've got the Miedemar aspect as well, which always makes it a little more interesting. So without much more to talk about, as there often isn't after a 1-1 draw, we'll leave it there. We'll be back next week. We'll probably do later next week because it's City and then Lyon at home at Meadow Park. So a massive couple of games. Izzy, you're going to be at Lyon as well at Meadow Park.
Yes, yes, I think I'll be there, so I'm looking forward to that. And yeah, I don't know. Last time we met them, it was very positive. So let's see if we can repeat that one.
Yeah, absolutely. I've just booked Munich up, so very much looking forward to that. All of Arsenal's away games at the club's main stadiums, which I think is really really good to see. Benfica, which is good because the Benfica's training ground is the other side of like this bit of sea to separating Lisbon from another part of Portugal. So Susie was very concerned after booking her hotel, and I pointed that out. But I'm really looking forward to the Allianz in particular, and hopefully Meadow Park will be that fortress. So how do you see it going then, City away?
I just do see it a little bit like I just said, where you get a rubbish result against a team you really, really should beat, and then you were able to just perform. It's a bit like losing to Villa last season and then winning against Barcelona in the Champions League final. So I'm going to predict it positively and just sort of because I just hope that Arsenal are able to get it together and say maybe a sort of 2-3-1 kind of situation.
Yeah, some goals will be fun,
Yeah,
certainly. Yeah,
good
all of
for
our
you
usual all of
covering
our
it.
usual coverage to come. Our latest women's Gooners remain on sale online. I think the hopefully we'll have some at Meadow Park for the Lyon game, and then definitely for Brighton as well at the Emirates. So yeah, good stuff. Cheers, Izzy. Speak soon.